Whoa, that was a great dinner. Thanks, Noni, for the invite.
Stop thanking me, friend. You know, I love cooking and I love to eat. That eggplant dish you were raving about came from my husband, who also loves to cook. He taught me how to make that dish because his mother used to make it for their family.
Not just the eggplant, but the fish was fabulous. For a pescatarian like me who does not know how to cook well, that was brilliant.
Why, thank you.
My favorite, though, was the rice with the crispy, buttery, spicy crust.
Ah, this is the life. Just for tonight, we can relax, eat, drink, chat without any distractions. Hey, who wants a refill? Or I can make something for you.
I would like to finish this last bit of wine and then I'm done. Thanks, Anita.
Some ice here, please.
I'm okay. Nursing my soju.
Anyone else? A virgin colada for you, Nani?
Ah, yes, please. Virgin Colada, huh? That reminds me of what's going around in my community. What's up with all this fear about not being a virgin?
Among Asians, you mean?
Yes, among Asians especially. Actually, I'm sure it's not limited to Asians.
Right. Also, most often it's about females.
Those who were born with a vagina, I think.
Yes, so not so much female identified, but people with vaginas. Don't you agree?
I guess. Anyways, I was wondering why virginity was valued so much. What does virginity actually mean?
Here is your drink, Noni. And here is your ice, Mona.
Thanks.
Are you asking about women as property and therefore having economic value? Ever heard of coverture? But maybe you're thinking about penetration. Or did you mean chastity as in no sexual activity?
Of course, look who's getting all academic about it. Anita is now going to give us a lesson about body performative acts, Judith Butler,
Oh,
and
Betty, stop being so negative. You always.
kidding, just kidding, okay?
Can we go back to what I'd like to get your opinions on? I just want to know how much all of us know about this thing called virginity, its history, and what it is worth to people. Maybe discussing chastity if that's what virginity means.
My suggestion is to start with the definition of virginity from each one of us. We should try to give different ones, no?
That's a good idea. Thanks, Mona. Who wants to go first? And no copycats.
In my opinion, note, this is based on fact, virginity is having had no sexual intimacy of any kind with another living being. With females, it is about more than a lack of hymen because some people were born with very little hymenal tissue. And a few have hymens that cover the entire vaginal opening, or the hole in their hymen is very small, requiring a surgical procedure.
I agree with Benny, and I would question virginity also in the context of masturbation. So, a hymen, if we consider it symbolic of virginity, can also be stretched open by putting something in your vagina, such as a finger or sex toy.
I should have clarified when I said sexual intimacy, I should have included sexual assault.
You know, in some cultures, a woman's virginity is tested before her first wedding night with an older married woman putting her finger in the bride-to-be's vagina to check. That would be sexual assault. Hmm.
About 10 years ago, I remember being appalled by human rights watch report on some country national police virginity tests. It looks for intact hymen.
In that same country, Dalia, a government official suggested rules that would make virginity tests a requirement to graduate for high school students, male and female, by the way, as a way to assess morality. One judge went so far to propose virginity tests before marriage. He believed divorce cases were rising because the women weren't virgins. Jeez. Okay, who's going next? Don't think too hard.
I don't believe in such a thing as the first time because there can be many first times. Each partner is a new experience. But Noni, I must naturally have a hole big enough for period blood to come out and for a person to use tampons comfortably. On the other hand, a girl could also lose her hymen by riding a bike or doing energetic exercise.
Yes, but in some communities, I hear women are trying to stop their teen daughters from using tampons or period cups because they want to keep their hymen intact. Be right back.
Well, why are your hymens can be stretched open the first time your vagina is penetrated, causing some pain or bleeding. This does not happen to everyone.
Like a virgin, touched for the very first time. But you made me feel, yeah, you made me feel shiny and new. Woo, woo.
Go, Nonie. That's 80 Madonna for you, right?
I got you all more wine. It's here if anyone wants some.
Back to you, Nonie. Give us your 2 cents worth.
That Madonna song reminds me of a sex worker in an 18th century porn novel who was faking her virginity to fool customers who were prepared to pay big money for a virgin. Honestly, you're all saying what I should have thought about. My 2 cents worth? I believe virginity is a commodity in some ways similar to facelifts and breast implants. And the commercialization of virginity, which is as old as humanity, has now gone virtual. Have y'all heard of virginity auctions?
Yep, the bitter for once American teen were international bigwigs. I remembered, including some Hollywood actor. I think the girl said something about it being emancipating. Some social media influencer are apparently doing the same thing. Someone was making the offer in order to raise funds for COVID-19.
But who knows about the Vestal virgins of 7th century BCE? A chief priest chose these girls virgins between 6 and 10 years. They had to care for and tend to the first at the temple of Vesta, the Roman goddess of the earth. They also had to prepare ritual food and draw water from a sacred spring. And finally, they had to keep their vow to chastity for 30 years. If they failed in their duties, they would get beaten. But if they broke their vow of chastity, they would be buried alive.
We've come a long way. Or have we? So then, what about present day hymens, for instance? Is it, sorry for being crude, a big issue over a little tissue?
Who says that? Some boomer?
I don't know. Well, actually, yes. My boomer grandpa. Very progressive in his thoughts, but maybe not so much in his words.
I'm done with my wine. I am going to get some more water. Anyone want anything from the kitchen?
No thanks.
Thanks.
Hey all, I just remember something. Mona's latest poem is based on Conference of the Birds and it's connected to what we are chatting about. Go on, Mona, recite it for everyone.
Yes, please. You always have a wonderful way of telling stories.
Thanks, Benny. Converse of the Bird was by a Sufi poet. I call mine Spirit of the Yonis. So here goes. Once upon a time, there was a forum of Yonis who met to look for their queen. The youngest of them was the wisest as well. She said the answers in the gene. There were 30 of them, some bearded, some not, some loose-lipped and eager to talk, some shyer types wore hoodies and muffs, while the radical one had a mohawk. I sat with them all, it was a carpet of fur. As we flew through a sinful land, I was a born-again bush of virginal ground, tilling and fulfilling with one trusted hand. The oldest was steering with split ends as guide. The merkin was peering ahead. 27 of us were staring above for the sign that would change to red. One waxed lyrical about a Brazilian. Our friend was a fiery crotch. Tresses entwined with shaven mounts. We were all what they call top notch. Over mountains and valleys, we swiftly sailed, skimming bare branches, blossoms, and trees. We could smell the heady scent of the brine, hear the gushing sound of the seas. We came upon a clear stretch of water, with leader rippling on a crack. We all dumpled out and gazed over the edge and recognized our eyes smiling back. So each one of us was royal blood. Tapu was the other half of Jean. Regal ran in our roots and our girls. We rule ourselves. We are queen.
That was fascinating, Mona. I love it. It's all about beauty care, huh? It took me a few lines to figure that out. So, what's the male equivalent of a hymen?
Can we not discuss males right now? It's the patriarchy that's brought us to this discussion.
Actually, although typically applied to women, virginity also applied to men. In both cases, especially denoting absence of sexual experience. However, as one young American feminist says, valuing virginity means putting morality between a woman's legs.
I think I know whom you're talking about. She's also coined something she calls virginity movement. Yes. Okay, so then if we're talking about sexual experience, what is making out supposed to mean? Or as my mother used to say, no petting, no necking.
Oh, that's so old school. There's a more cool way now of saying virginity is passe. But seriously, I have also heard twice married women worry about their daughter's virginity. So ridiculous.
Not so ridiculous if you understand the repercussions for women who have to prove virginity on their wedding night by bleeding on the sheets. The hymen has major cultural significance and underscores gender inequality around the world, mind you, as a perceived biological indicator of virginity. The myths around the hymen and virginity have led to the medical cosmetic complex catering to hymenoplasty, the hymen industrial complex, so to speak.
So-called revirgination surgical procedures.
Anyone here know how hymenoplasty is done?
Actually, hymenoplasty is not the same as revirgination. Hymenoplasty puts back the torn hymen, but revirgination is undertaken to make full changes in female genitalia, i.e., hymen restoration through hymenoplasty and tightening the vaginal vault through vaginoplasty.
Oh, yes, I've heard about that.
Where
Husband
did,
stitch.
where did you hear that?
A husband stitch or daddy stitch is an extra stitch given after tearing from vaginal births, supposedly to tighten the vagina for the pleasure of a male sexual partner. I read this great short story called The Husband Stitch by Carmen Maria Machado, I think. So I looked it up online. Oh, And by the way, there was a recent news item about a Utah doctor who told a 14-year-old's boyfriend after her baby's delivery that he did the husband stitch for him when sewing her up.
That's so messed up. I know some women who have suffered FGC. By the way, that's female genital cutting. And later their husbands have become upset about the pain both parties continue to suffer. And all of them have had to have C sections.
FGC had been accepted as grounds for asylum in the UK until 2022, when many restrictive laws affecting refugee protection were passed. On top of that, women affected by FGC would struggle at asylum interviews, trying to respond to mocking by UK authorities, backward cultural practices. I wonder what US asylum rules now are, given that the Board of Immigration Appeals has raised objections about who qualifies for protected grounds against persecution.
Do you know that in some countries you can buy an artificial hymen as well as the scent of a young bride on her wedding night? I suspect scent means intimate smells. It's rather complicated though, because then we have to consider which class of women has access to such products, what is oppressive and what is liberatory, and what about other cosmetic surgeries such as breast, bum, and penis enhancements, liposuction, and facelifts?
I have also heard about hymen repair kits that you can use at home. Apparently, these kits have artificial hymens wrapped in natural plastic bags or pills containing red dye that can be used as fake blood. One has to insert it before intercourse with the person whom they want to show that they are a virgin.
Yes, but somehow the valuing of an intact vagina makes me shudder. Not only because of what this means to the agency of female bodies and the society's expectations, but also of the internalizing of these values and the punishment for transgressions. If you remain a virgin, you are of good character. The cycle of human violence.
Virginity shaming is really another form of violence against a woman.
We also know that the concept of hymens and female virginity gets complicated when it comes to trans people. In fact, Hymen or Hymenaeus, the Greek god of marriage, was supposed to possess such a delicate beauty that he was mistaken for a young girl. According to one tradition, Hymenaeus saved number of young women from pirates, and afterwards was praised in all bridal songs called hymeneal songs.
At the university, I recently had an OB-GYN come in to talk to a student group about sex, gender, and virginity. I mean, many of these seemingly self-confident young folks were clueless about where the hymen was, although they breezily banded around terms like cisgender gay male and ace and abro. A hymen's like a scrunchie, stretching out and in, so while it seems untidy, it's also good protection. Against what, you ask? It's tucked out of sight, safe inside and under, sadly becomes everyone's right and the owner's wonder. About what, you ask? Why is a membrane seen to define a person? Isn't it just insane and very likely to worsen? To what extent, you ask? When all trans folks face an additional worry about incoming jokes that turn brutal in a hurry. I say woman, you say, what's that? I say woman, you say,
What's
What's
that?
What's
that?
that?
I say woman, and you say,
What's that?
What's that?
thanks all. Not as good as Mona's.
Oh my, this is such a fab fest and so creative. I am worried about my daughter though. She was recently prattling on about DTFs and BDEs. And I was like, what the heck is that? Then she told me, and I had to have the talk with her about sexual responsibility. I mean, Is all the hoopla about virginity really, or is it about controlling female bodies? I think my daughter was kind of smirking during our conversation.
Remember Britney Spears and other celebrity virgin of 90 and 2000 with their puberty rings? Even the Jonas brother brags about wearing those rings. And then Miley Cyrus came to the conclusion that she needed to deflower herself after her career as Hannah Montana began failing. Poor Britney. I think Justin Timberlake apologized years later at a radio interview in which he said, "Okay, yeah, I did it," about first time sex with Britney.
OMG, yes, I think Brittany tried to explain that away, saying she did it because she loved Justin, and so she was justified in breaking her vow. She did say also that she was heartbroken about his betrayal by making it public. I feel really sorry for her. Um, a self-imposed virginity based on that idea that for women, sex is only acceptable and natural in romantic love.
Exactly. And to further that idea, in cultures where marriage is not as seen as the beginning of a sexual relationship, but love is, for women especially. Anita, can you give me a refill, please? That was delicious, by the way.
Sure.
Yes. And women lose virginity, but for males, it's usually seen as a gain. Objectification of the female body, really. And so we go back to who owns and then who polices that body. In Western cultures, just about 2 centuries ago, women who enjoyed sex were considered deviant. That was the time that awful word, nymphomaniac, was coined. And stereotyping Black women as hypersexual. Remember the Hottentot Venus? It was also extended to Asian women who were equated to geishas, who themselves were actually not prostitutes. But then in 20th century America, we began to see purity balls where young women pledged their virginities to their fathers for safekeeping until their marriage. I mean, T.I., the rapper, had not so long ago shared in a podcast that he had been taking his 18-year-old daughter for a yearly medical checkup to ensure that her hymen was intact. How we absorb patriarchal values.
Here is your drink, Nonie. So, what we are talking about now? Are we sharing about when we lost our virginity then?
I'm okay with it. I got married early at 20 in my home country, and my husband was my first. It wasn't all that I can tell you.
I'm gay and I have never been with a man, so
This is not just about man and woman, Benny. Okay, so my so called first partner was my cousin.
No,
Hold on, he was my cousin. But we were supposed to get married. My family and his family. By the way, he's my father's sister's son. We're all in agreement, and frankly, in my 18 years old mind, I thought he was hot. He left for a job in Persian Gulf, and we expected him to return for our engagement, but he took off for Europe and then called and told me he was gay. He was very apologetic, and by then, I did not care. We are friends now. Of course, we never told our parents, right?
okay, that's good to know that you didn't marry your cousin.
It happens a lot in many Asian and Pacific Islander cultures, Mona. In mine, it is quite common.
I lost my virginity to my first boyfriend, who also was a virgin. I'm not sure whether any of you know if your first were virgins as well. It was quite an experience because we were 15, doing it in his friend's bedroom because his friend was rich and living in a big house with housekeepers and chauffeurs. I was really naive. I was afraid someone would walk in on us and that would have been horrible.
I'm not sure I want to share today, guys. If you are okay with it, I'm just not comfortable doing that.
Oh, of course, Dahlia. This is all voluntary. And by the way, this should stay here. So, who's up for dessert?
I
I
am.
am.
Great. Let's all go back to the table.